What's going on, everybody? It is about to be the end of the summer. We've only got 2 weeks left of August, and I've said this before. Every August, we always get at least one banger. And we were gifted this year because not only did we receive M. Night Shyamalan's Trap the first weekend of the year, but we have been gifted not only with another banger for the month of August, but one that happened to fall right on my birthday, that being the 7th installment in the Alien franchise, Alien Romulus, which after the last two Ridley Scott directed movies, I think it's safe to say that nobody was quite as excited for this as I think we all were coming out of it. I think it's safe to say that as we are here to discuss Fede Alvarez's Alien Romulus, which I think it's safe to say had some of the best trailers of the year going into it. But before we get started, Luke, Kevin, would you guys say that you were sufficiently satisfied after coming out of this movie?
I was more than satisfied. It was everything I wanted it to be and more. One of the best installments in the entire franchise. Personally, it's probably my second favorite in the franchise after Aliens. I liked pretty much everything it did. I don't have a lot. I probably have one small gripe we can get to later with the movie, but I don't have that much negative to say. The film was an absolute masterpiece.
Luke?
I got exactly what I wanted, which was best one since Aliens, and it delivered on that. So
absolutely,
a good Alien movie in 2024. That's already like
exactly. That's already a very a very low bar that it's overcome, to say the least. So we will get into that, all of that, more on today's episode of the Talkin' TV podcast. Stay tuned. What is going on, everybody? Happy Monday. This is not the first Monday that I've gone live. It won't be the last. Like I said, there's a couple of changes to the podcast coming in soon that I'm implementing. More than likely, this is going to be the last episode that we do for the summer. I know that we have Blink Twice, aka Pussy Island, coming out next week rather. But for the most part, I think this is going to be officially kind of our summer wrap up. And oh man, what a summer it has been, Luke. Just, with what did I say? I mean, I wasn't technically wrong in terms of Deadpool Wolverine being the only movie that really made money. I mean, Inside Out 2 and Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes technically also made some money. But for the most part, I would say, yeah, the summer kind of went exactly the way that I was expecting, which was a little bit disappointing, to say the least. But like I was saying in the intro, August, man, it is turned around. August used to be like the movie where they would just dump the last couple of movies that couldn't quite fit into June and July before we get into September. But now the last couple of years, I got to say, I've been very, very impressed with how August has gone, with some of my favorite movies of the last couple of years, James Gunn's The Suicide Squad and Bullet Train, both being August releases. Also, while last August wasn't the best showing, Blue Beetle and Landscape with Invisible Hand were still fun. So, needless to say, obviously, when I saw that they were making another Alien movie after the back-to-back efforts of Prometheus and Alien Covenant, I was skeptical, to say the least, because I feel like the thing that Ridley Scott forgot about those movies in the however many years it had been since he directed the first one, because even though Ridley Scott's name is kind of permanently attached to this franchise, people forget he only directed the first movie. And so the thing I feel like that he forgot with both Prometheus and Alien Covenant is that both of those movies, he kind of forgot that Alien is a horror movie at the front and center. Obviously he got very, very much into the mythology and the backstory and kind of the overarching philosophical ramifications of humankind and all that. And that's cool and all. But I feel like he got a little bit too lost in that and kind of setting up this universe that was going to get all these sequels that ultimately never happened. Unfortunately, another classic example of mistakes that franchises would make in the 2010s. So, needless to say, going into this movie, Luke, I want to start with you on this one. What was your relationship with the Alien franchise before you went into Romulus? You're a little younger than me and Kevin here, so your relationship with, I'm assuming Prometheus and Covenant were probably the first two Alien movies that you saw.
I didn't see Prometheus. I did see Alien Covenant. At that point, I had probably seen the first two at some point, but I watched Prometheus and then I watched Covenant. I haven't seen Prometheus and Covenant since, but all the discourse and revisionist history on Twitter makes me want to go back and see maybe it's age better. But yeah, I've watched Alien and Aliens multiple times over the years. I haven't ventured into the other sequels, but yeah, it's like one is probably one of the greatest science fiction horror movies ever. The other is one of the greatest science fiction action movies ever. So I would just want to see another one. And it being Fede Alvarez, what he does with Evil Dead, if he can take that into Alien, I mean, how are you not excited about that kind of potential?
Exactly. And for me, obviously, it was Don't Breathe. And just the fact that movie, I mean, obviously, I always attribute the double release of Split and Get Out in the beginning of 2017 as being the reason why I started actually paying attention to horror movies as a genre. But really, if you want to go back before that, it was Don't Breathe was the movie that actually got me into horror movies. Also, an August release. So,
do you want to know what is translated as here?
What?
Man in the Dark.
Perfect. It's perfect. I love the Latvian English translations to it. It's great. Kevin, so your history with the Alien franchise, right? So I'm guessing that like you, myself, you're a little older than me, but so I'm guessing that like myself, you probably watched, Alien and Aliens as a kid and kind of followed the franchise in real time, if I'm guessing, including some of the best that the 2000s had to offer, Alien versus Predator and Alien versus Predator Requiem, just gems of cinema right there.
Yeah, just like everything Paul Anderson has directed, just a fantastic movie. He's sarcastically. My first introduction to this franchise was when I was in 7th grade. I was home for a trip from boarding school, and I saw Alien for the first time, and instantly the scene that probably everyone had their minds blown by, the chestburster scene. I couldn't stop watching it after that. I had to see what was going to happen. I've been following the franchise ever since. I've seen every theatrical release that I could, including AVPR, unfortunately, which I can get my money back for that one.
That's a tough one. I'm sorry you had to deal with that.
Yeah, that was tough. And that was actually the first one I saw in theaters. Also, when I was at home for boarding school on a trip, and I just remember being like, I remember comparing it to Alien and Aliens and not believing what I saw. And ironically, to make myself feel better after that, I tried Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection and realized. Unfortunately, for as many high points as the series has, it also has some low points. Now, I will say this. I am actually an avid Alien Covenant defender. Mm-hmm. I really enjoyed that one. Prometheus, not as much. I like what they were going for, but Alien Covenant, I am a defender of, and I think with this new one, I'm glad to say that now it feels like there's finally more good Alien movies than bad Alien movies.
Yes, to say the least. Thankfully, it's been a while, and it's funny that you mentioned that actually about Prometheus and Covenant because I rewatched Prometheus. I remember watching both as well. I didn't watch Prometheus in theaters. I did watch Covenant in theaters. Prometheus, I remember the first time watching it being a little bit confused. I mean, like, how does this tie in with the Alien franchise? And then Covenant, I'm like, okay, this actually has xenomorphs and aliens in it, and Michael Fassbender is once again the best part about both of those movies, and literally the fact that you have two Michael Fassbenders, one teaching the other to play a flute, and it's one of the most compelling things I've ever seen. I'm like, I don't quite know how this is tying into Alien, but either way, I'm just enjoying what I'm seeing. But like I was saying, needless to say, those movies I think kind of got a little lost and confused. I rewatched Prometheus about a year or two ago, and I actually really did enjoy it for what it was. I attribute a lot of that to Damon Lindelof and mostly just the performance. Like, people forget, like, Idris Elba, Guy Pearce, Charlize Theron, and what's it called? Obviously Numi Rapace. It's got a huge cast too.
Stellar cast. I don't think people realize the ensemble that's in that movie.
Yeah.
One thing I will say about Prometheus and Covenant is just the awful decisions the humans make throughout both of them.
Yeah.
Hey, maybe run to the left.
Yeah. As film Twitter has pointed out for years. Yeah, needless to say, I think that's the biggest problem with those two movies is, again, not smart characters, Like, I'll give the Covenant characters this at the very least. They don't know what they're getting into when they land on that planet.
No, but also that's the first bad decision of the movie is even landing there. You guys have a mission. You're supposed to be going to a specific planet for a specific reason.
Right.
Just stay on course.
If there's one rule that we've learned about the Alien movies, do not answer distress signals. It never ends well.
Ever. Fuck them.
Fuck them.
I'm out.
Leave him to die. Yes. And as far as the originals, right? So obviously I remember having very fond memories of watching. Again, I call this my wave of catching up on movies during high school, but I would like go on illegal movie websites and watch movies, and watching Alien and Aliens for the first time and really, really enjoying them and being like, okay, I understand why these are like not just staples of horror cinema, but staples of cinema and kind of what these have added. You know, also, again, kind of how they kind of respectively launched the careers of two of the most iconic directors we still have worked today, Ridley Scott and James Cameron. And even Alien 3, I'll say for my money, I caught up on that one when I was doing my Fincher catch up during COVID. And the biggest thing I can say about it is I was surprised by how much I didn't hate it. But I think the biggest thing is I'm like, okay, I think I kind of understand why people don't like this one. It doesn't really work as a conclusion that was set up from the three movies. Rather, it's more of an Elseworld thing where it's like, oh, it's like a stopping off point before they can get to like a cool fourth movie. And then unfortunately that got followed up by Resurrection, which is the only Alien sequel that I have not seen, but I have heard nothing but bad things about it. And I've also seen the stills of the cake batter looking alien, and it's not good to say the least.
You should watch it once just to say you have.
Yeah. So to put this in perspective, the directors of that movie directed Amelie, which is a decision that still makes absolutely no sense to me. And also, I'm also more slightly embarrassed because as much as I continue to champion movies released in this year, Dustin and I were literally just talking about one of our favorite Matt Damon movies, Good Will Hunting, which was released in the year 1997, which is also the year that I was born. And yeah, unfortunately, Alien Resurrection was released in 1997. So yeah, doesn't exactly make, along with three of the worst superhero movies ever made. But so obviously after Covenant, right, there was a lot of rumblings about kind of where they were going to take the franchise. They were considering doing another Alien versus Predator movie. I know that there was a long time that the director of District 9, Neil Blomkamp, was going to do his own Alien movie, and that ended up getting scrapped. Obviously, And then there was the conversation of Noah Hawley, the creator of Fargo, is doing his own Alien show, which as of right now is still set to premiere next year on FX. And then I don't remember where exactly we heard it along the way, but somewhere along the way, Fede Alvarez, the director of the Evil Dead reboot and Don't Breathe and Girl in the Spider's Web, was confirmed to be doing another Alien movie that Ridley Scott was going to be very fully involved with behind the scenes producing. And I didn't really, like a lot of other movies that have come out recently, I didn't really pay too much attention or credence to it until we saw the trailer. And I mean, this trailer, oh man, I don't think I've seen a trailer since Dune 2 that had me this pumped for the movie. I think the biggest thing that I noted about it first was just the scale, the feeling of it. They definitely were taking the right lessons from Prometheus and Covenant in the sense of those two movies felt huge. Like, not only did you feel the vastness of space, but the level of the production design. They definitely, you could tell, were pulling a lot of notes from Denis Villeneuve, specifically the work that he did on Blade Runner, because it looked like exactly the same kind of production. Exactly the same kind of production. And I'm pretty sure it's the same guy who did the score for Blade Runner as well, Benjamin Wallfish. So I'm pretty sure it had all of that going forward as well. And that's before we even see the xenomorphs and the face hugger and everything. And as far as the plot for this one goes, it's pretty simple. They bring it back to basics. It's a couple kids that are unfortunately stuck in that very fun mining lifestyle for Weyland-Yutani on another boat. They're just trying to escape and go to like a new planet. And they figured they could get out of it by hijacking this scientific vessel that happens to be floating close to the planet. And, well, we all know where the rest of that goes from there. So, obviously, with that setup, Kevin, like, with just that setup in general, we're already being set up for something that's going to be a lot different from Prometheus and Covenant. Mm-hmm. So.
Very different. And I, as much as I do defend Covenant, I understand people's gripes with it. It's just, I'm not against the philosophical aspect, but the number one reason we come to this series is for the horror. And even though it had its moments, both Covenant and Prometheus lost track. And I feel like both of those didn't really pay any mind to the roots of the franchise. This one absolutely did. It was easily the scariest in the franchise. The way they use the camera angles to make you feel like you're there with them.
Yes.
It almost seemed like the whole movie was a close-up, and that worked so well for it, in my opinion. This was not to downplay the actors who did an amazing job, but this was absolutely an accomplishment of directing and camera work and special effects and just the way everything came together. This is what we want in an Alien franchise. Between that and Predator, both being back and both had fantastic entries into their respective series in the past few years. I'm excited to see where them go. Ironically, I don't know if this is true, but I heard Fede Alvarez say.
Yes, I was about to get to that. Yes, Fede Alvarez did say that he would be interested in doing a new Alien vs. Predator movie, co-directing it with Dan Trachtenberg. And that would be interesting where he does the Alien segments and then Trachtenberg does the Predator segments. I'll say this, but I would watch that. I would watch that. That seems like it would be really interesting.
I would watch that in a heartbeat. Just Paul Anderson from it for me.
Yeah. So, well, and you know what's funny, because you were mentioning Paul W.S. Anderson. Unfortunately, the worst part is he only directed the first one. He didn't do Requiem. Requiem is directed by the Strauss brothers, who famously did the worst alien invasion movie ever. This movie called Skyline that came out. Oh, do you want to see an epically awful movie? Do yourself a favor and look that movie up. It is one of the worst movies I have ever seen, ever. Luke, real quick, I want to bring it over to you for a second. I mean, just for the production design standpoint, right? I mean, the fact that like the xenomorphs are already an alien species that we're already pretty familiar with to begin with, and then now you have this movie that almost adds like a whole new lens to a species that you're already kind of familiar with. What, just run me through your thoughts on that.
Well, yeah, it was one of the greatest fictional creature designs ever. But I like this. I don't know. Is it a trend in recent horror, like Evil Dead Rise, Prey, and now this? Just simple, like one movie experience. Like take a premise, okay, stick the alien in there, stick the predator in there, whatever. And yeah, like Kevin mentioned, taking back to the basics. Just they're on the ship. There's an alien. They're screwed, and just various ways of them being screwed. Like you said, that the directing is impeccable. You always feel the Xeno's presence. They use the face huggers more in this one, which I liked. But when the proper xenomorph does show up, it's like, oh yeah. The star of the show is finally here.
It's like they're pulling different bits and pieces from various alien movies, but only the stuff that works. And what I love particularly too about, obviously, so, you know, you have the original alien, right? The face hugger pops out of John Hurt's chest, runs off. Next thing you know, you have, what's his name? The captain in the rafters trying to find it. And now it's fully grown, you know? So obviously they're doing a little bit of old school movie magic there. Here, obviously, and Fede has talked heavily about the fact that he does not like using a lot of CGI and he prefers using practical effects. And it shows, because the scene where obviously first, when the chest burster bursts out of the first victim. And we all know it's going to happen. Like, everybody knows it's coming. And that's just, again, it's a thing that I love the directors use, which is utilizing the audience's knowledge of the franchise and the rules of the franchise against them, which I think is always genius whenever they pull that off. And then, obviously, once you actually see it fully, not only just poking its little head out of the first victim, but then when it gets fully revealed in, like, this weird cocoon that is formed, which to my knowledge, I don't think we've ever seen that before. And then obviously how the second guy dies when he tries to kill it with all the utilization of the acid blood. And like you were saying, Luke, I was even saying that like the emphasis that they put on the face huggers in this too. This truly is an example of like, and I hate to say this because this always feels like it goes against like movie rules, but this truly is an example of like the cast and characters here are simply cannon fodder. But I also kind of like that because I like when I've talked a lot about how like movie stardom can sometimes be distracting within certain genres and within certain movies. And I feel like this is one of those instances where, again, they just understand that perfectly. Where, okay, you have some actors that you recognize her. You have Kaylee Spaney. You have David Johnson from Industry. You have Isabel Merced, who's been in a couple things recently. She's been in franchises like Transformers. She's going to be in Hawkgirl and James Gunn's Superman next year. But like, none of these guys are really distracting enough so you don't necessarily get involved. And even that little bit of trickery that they do where they kind of sort of bring back Ian Holm, but not really, with the way, you know, as the android that kind of like kicks everything off. I even thought that was really well done. So just as far as, again, like the aliens really are the star of this movie, but even how, again, they're not on every frame. And again, just, oh man, once you get into that hallway, I love too how like every time that like you see like, oh, how you know the aliens have taken over is you just see like this black secretion stuff, and they never really explain like kind of where it comes from. Like, did the aliens just like spread it with their tails? Like they never explain where that stuff comes from, but it doesn't really matter because it's just perfect as far as setting up the atmosphere.
I would like to see a future film explain how they make their hives, and because I mean, we only saw the very beginning of that hive. There was probably a lot more going on that ship than we realized. I mean, maybe there was a queen down there. There's no way to, I would assume there was.
Right.
aliens.
I'd like to see the queen again in some regard. Where it's a different queen or whatever.
Well, it's so funny because, again, like the way, and again, this is another bit of the movie trickery, and I'll save this for when we get to it at the end, but like, I feel like the entire time, especially once they're, I mean, the minute that they reveal that Isabel Merced's character is pregnant, I'm like, oh, this is not going to end well. I'm like, this is not going to end well at all. And the entire time, I'm expecting them to set up that she's going to be the host for the new queen. And then the ending comes, and I'm like, oh no. Kevin, I know you're going with that. Hold that for the end because we are getting to that because, oh man, just when I thought this movie could not get any better.
It even ties into Prometheus a bit.
Yes, it even manages to bring back Prometheus.
Because, like, wait, I remember that.
I was worried that this one was going to remove Prometheus and Covenant from the canon. I was so relieved when they referenced the Black Goo and just knowing that those movies are still being acknowledged. I will say this on the Ian Holmes thing. I'm kind of getting over the whole bringing back dead celebrities.
Yeah.
For things. Why didn't they just use David?
Yeah. Well, okay. Actually, I'm glad that you brought that up. I actually am glad that you brought that up because it's a couple things that need to be taken into account here. So I am actually glad that you brought that up. First and foremost, the fact that they were very, very specific as far as within the chronology, this takes place after the first Alien. And they very also explicitly said at the beginning of Aliens that there was about a 50 to 57 year jump between Alien and Aliens. So there's a lot of unexplored territory, because obviously by the time Ripley wakes up in Aliens, it's discovered that LV-428 has now been converted into a mining colony, and that's obviously what kicks off the events of Aliens. And obviously, you also take into account the fact that the opening scene of this movie is they find that station that they're on, the Romulus Remus station, whatever it ends up called. They find the alien, the xenomorph that Ripley shot out of the airlock at the end of Alien. That's what kicks us off. So already,
there's a big Nostromo sign.
Exactly.
Hey,
So already they're kind of queuing us up for as far as like, okay, how this is going to tie into the franchise. So I don't remember exactly the amount of time difference, but there is a significant amount of time. I want to say like close to a century between when Covenant ends and when the first Alien begins. Because the whole thing that Covenant was setting up is the way that Covenant ends, obviously, when it's revealed that David has replaced the other Fassbender, the good Fassbender in Covenant, and when he places the the alien microbes that are eventually going to grow into the facehuggers in the ship, it's being very clear that wherever he is going, he is trying to implant these different microorganisms throughout the cosmos, obviously, because in his own twisted mind, right, he is attempting to finish Charles Weyland's original mission that was set up for him, and also the opening credit of Covenant, as far as, again, finding the key to immortality and finding, the perfect instance. And there's only one bit of unexplained territory, which is that I think that's a thing that now has become seated in core programming of all of the androids, because they explicitly say that David is the first android built in Weyland's image. And the fact of the matter is that all the androids kind of now have this underlying direct programming of, okay, whatever is best for the company, because they see the company as the extension of Charles Weyland's original vision. And given the fact that within proximity, this is closer to Alien than Prometheus and Covenant, I'm guessing that there was a discussion between Fede Alvarez and Ridley Scott, because we know that Ridley Scott was definitely very heavily involved in not necessarily the making, but the planning and the conception of this movie, that there definitely was a discussion at some point as to whether or not Fassbender would be included in this. And I think they came to the decision that, like, okay, it shouldn't be Fassbender. And then they were like, okay, wouldn't it be cool if we could do, like, Ian Holmes like this? Because that's obviously that they've been experimenting around with AI and deep fakes. Was it necessary? No, but I like how it was utilized in the sense, and also the fact that it wasn't Ian Holm, it wasn't Ash, it was a different android that was modeled after Ash. And that, I think, was the part that they borrowed from Fassbender, because, again, the thing is that for a majority of Covenant, you're following a completely different Fassbender android. And it's not until halfway through the movie that you get David back, and then that's the whole, old model meets the newer model. And you almost kind of have that as well with the David Johnson character in this one as well. I can't remember his name that he had. Andy, right. Andy, but they were definitely trying to do something similar as well, where they were like, oh, he's a defunct model. He was fished out of the trash. And then once they replace his chip, then all of a sudden he snaps too. And he's like, oh, now we got this mission and we got to finish this or else we're all going to die. And I love the utilization of androids in this. Also the fact that, again, only a couple years after Ridley Scott did Alien, he did Blade Runner, which is kind of like the basis for like androids in film, and only a couple years after that, we get Lance Henriksen's Bishop in Aliens and the treatment of him and his difference, his much more warm and his much more warm demeanor and helpful demeanor, as opposed to Ash, who was very cold, very, very stoic, very solid, very much, company first. All the rest of these guys are cannon fodder. So I think that's another kind of like not forgotten element, but almost like not as important element, because every time people think of the Alien movies, they think of the Xenomorphs first and foremost. But like the androids and their inclusion in this franchise and the role that they play is just as important, especially considering that if we go by the Prometheus and Covenant mythos, the androids are the ones who kind of are responsible for the Xenomorphs continuing to, play a part, because the humans are always like, we got to kill these things. And the androids are always like, nah, we got to find out how we can control these things. And the results are never pretty, to say the least.
Shout out Bishop for finally understanding.
Yes. Bishop was finally the one who was like, yeah, we like these things gotta go, honestly. And also the fact that he pulls the ultimate badass play, getting ripped in half by the alien queen and still manages to save Newt from getting sucked out of the airlock. But I want to talk about kind of the new additions that this film makes, because I think that in addition to obviously just all the things we've talked about as far as the horror staples, the production design, the contributions to the mythos in this movie, which I think are the points that a couple people are still pretty hit or miss on. But obviously, once they come to the station, and obviously once they, figure out what's going on, and once they kind of activate the face huggers and the xenomorphs start coming on, they're like, what the hell was going on in this station? Then once they talk to the Ian Holm replacement, the deep fake, the Rook character, I believe it's what it's called, and he kind of exposits away, and also very good use of exposition in this movie as well. He kind of exposits away kind of what the hell's been happening here. Well, what did you guys think of that first and foremost? You think that was a good kind of continuation as far as what they were trying to do originally? Because again, that's the thing that the androids always do, and it's the reason why they keep trying to bring these xenomorphs back. It's the perfect life form. It's basically almost damn near invulnerable. Acid blood. These things are killing machines. Like, what do you guys think just in general on the humans, or rather the androids, and take on the alien? Because obviously that's also the contribution of corporations and how they always are looking for profit, even at the behest of human life in this case. Kevin, I want to start with you.
I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I think I would have preferred that it had been David, just out of respect to Ian Holm. Let the dead rest. There's a few instances where they've done it and it's worked, but I don't think this was awful. But I would have preferred if they had done David, just out of respect to. Yeah, I think this is something that's becoming normalized that needs to be stopped. But I did enjoy it. Story-wise, it made sense. It moved everything forward. Like you said, at this point, the androids strictly serve the company, and there was that point where they tricked Andy into accidentally upgrading himself, and he became a company bot. Like, it was something I enjoyed. Like I said, it's one of my two. I have two small gripes with the movie, and that is one of them. But definitely still worked. Just, I think it could have been done better and with a little bit more class than plastering a deceased individual's face over.
Yeah, over a body double. Yeah, and obviously we all know which movie we have to thank for the starting of that. That being, of course, their inclusion of Grand Moff Tarkin in Rogue One, which is where all of this started. Luke, yeah.
I love Rogue One. You didn't need Tarkin.
No, you didn't. I mean, I understand why the decision, it's still kind of cool, but in hindsight, as far as the ripple effect that it's caused throughout Hollywood, yeah, it's definitely caused a lot more harm than good, I would say. Luke, your thoughts on kind of the new contributions to the alien mythos, specifically the continued use of the black goo, the alien DNA.
Yeah, for the digital resurrection, I don't really have like a major stance on it. We didn't need it, but it's there. I enjoyed what we got. But yeah, the expanding of the mythos, I do appreciate that they don't ignore Prometheus Covenant. They try to incorporate it somewhat, but also they don't like hinge the whole movie about it. They don't try to set up 3 sequels at the same time. It's just simple. It's like, hey, remember that thing from the movie? Hey, we're gonna make a freaky thing out of it that you're not expecting.
Yeah. And we were not expecting it, to say the least. Yeah, and I love how, too, again, it's one of those instances where, again, they're utilizing the rules of screenwriting where it's like, okay, very much Pavlov's gun. They're setting up, okay, she's pregnant. Okay, this goo, and like supposedly it's like the cure to human like morality or mortality and weakness. And then you see the video screen and how it affects. It almost kind of is a little bit of like an Amazing Spider-Man instance too, with the lizard specifically, where he like creates this serum that turns him into like a giant lizard. And then you see what happens with the rat as far as that setting up. Again, still doesn't even come close to as far as what we actually get going forward. But obviously, it's the instance of where Isabel Merced's character gets kidnapped after the first two die. The last three have to go and save her. The one guy gets killed by the xenomorph. You have a couple more fun sequences between the David Johnson character and as far as like his contribution to the company versus his original allegiance to Kaylee Spaney's character. They find Isabel Merced. They get her out of there. They manage to successfully get to the ship, blow up the station with the xenomorphs in there. Real quick, Kevin, what did you think of the use of the famous line from Aliens where like David Johnson kills the one? I'm like, but he has the awkward bit at the end. I was like, we couldn't have one. We had to have at least like Marvel-esque one-liner in there where he's like, get away from you, ... bitch. I was like, oh, really?
I know, it's cheesy. I loved it. It made me so happy when he said that.
Yeah, I was just like, that was the one instance where I'm like, I get it, you had to have it in there, but like, really?
I guess it's a bit much, but it's like you're directing an Alien movie.
Yeah,
you're a big fan. You're gonna.
Yeah, it does. Choices. Yeah, it does make sense. Honestly, it does. Now let's get to the ending. So, needless to say, again, one that none of us saw coming. And again, I was already locked in. I'm like, this is already damn near as close to being a perfect movie as you can get.
There are. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No. I was gonna say what you were gonna say.
There are two instances there are two pictures. There are two. What's the word I'm looking for? Shots from that will live rent free in my head for just being creepy as hell.
Yeah.
The first one was when the face huggers were trying to break through the door and all their little Second one puts that one to shame. And it was the human alien hybrid.
Yeah, so like as far as the setup and the context for it goes, obviously, like I said, it's said pretty early on in the movie that Isabel Merced's character is pregnant. So, and they don't really go too much into that. Then they obviously introduced the black goo, which is the whole reason for why, the ship got loose. They found the xenomorph from Alien. They were experimenting on it. They were trying to figure out its DNA as far as, creating like the key to immortality, essentially. And then throughout the movie, right, obviously when Isabel Merced gets attacked by the alien, she gets impaled sort of by the tail, but then kidnapped, but not really. But she's trying to heal herself to protect the baby. So she injects herself with the fluid. And obviously, again, anybody who's watched a lot of movies knows that there's no way in hell that this is going to end well. Anybody who's watched any instance from this franchise knows that this is not going to end well, considering the fact that all of these movies always have to have a twist jump scare inclusion at the end. It's kind of a rule of the Alien movies, if you will. And so they get back to the ship. They escape from the station. They think all's good. They're tucking them into stasis lock. And then something happened. The red light goes off. And she pulls out the thing. And Mercedes has gone from, 6 weeks to 9 months in 0.2 seconds. And she gives birth. And she immediately knows, oh, man, this is not going to end well. And within 5 seconds, that hybrid has grown into a full-on, 9-foot tall, sort of a Slender Man meets Xenomorph with the tail. Also a couple elements of the engineers from Prometheus, who were the original, obviously, supposedly the original creators of mankind, from which obviously the humans get the idea to create the Xenomorphs from, because their DNA is kind of mixed and spliced in there as well. And while it does result in yet another instance where the main heroine has to flush the final alien out of the airlock, which we've seen in 4 of these movies now. Oh man, talk about taking expectations and flipping them on their head. Because goddamn, just the visual imagery of it itself too, and the way that they bring back the jump scares and how they're trying to deposit the friggin' the mining or what's it called? Drop ship with the alien trapped in there, but it keeps getting. Luke, when you saw that, what were the first thoughts that went through your head when you saw that?
Ooh, we're getting freaky again.
Yes.
Wonderful. Like as soon as she injected him herself, I'm like, oh, okay, what the hell is this thing gonna look like? And I was not disappointed. I guess we're gonna see the xenomorphs in every movie. They're not really gonna change much, but if you can throw something new in there, that's a lot. And then it just dissolves into craziness. And like you mentioned, the jump scare. I'm a terrible movie watcher. I never know what's coming next. So that was a very earned jump scare.
I'm pretty sure that makes you a good movie watcher if you don't, because you're not supposed to know what happens.
I never guess a plot twist or anything, but I really enjoyed it. It's just, let's do Alien again with today's technology.
Yeah.
Kaylee Spaney is great. I hope she gets a million jobs after this.
She will.
She's gonna be
she was just in Civil War earlier this year. She was in Priscilla last year. She's doing just fine. She is doing just fine. Yeah. I was just like, when I saw that, I was like I don't remember I don't think my jaw's been on the floor like that for any other movie this year. I really can't think of another instance. I mean, there's a movie that's coming out in about a month that I was able to see an early screening of, and that's probably the only other one that I can think of. I don't know if you guys know which movie I'm talking about. It's Luke, I think you know which one. It's The Substance with Demi Moore, the one that came out of Cannes, which all I'm gonna say is watch that movie when you get a chance, because that movie, it's not
We're
quite
getting it. It's amazingly so.
You're actually getting it. Oh,
we didn't get trapped. I
still don't understand why that didn't happen. I think that's just because what's it called? I think that's just because, you know, the something to do with Shyamalan and his contracts with the studios. But yeah, I was just I saw that 9 foot. I don't even know what to call it. I'm like, do I call it a human alien hybrid? Do I call it the Xeno engineer? Like, I'm like, what do I call this thing?
They're calling it Offspring.
Yeah, they're calling it the Offspring.
Oh, that's too generic. That's way too generic a title. Come on, we can come up with something cooler than that.
Guy, he's like a basketball player.
I figured. Well, obviously that's the whole thing of that probably like pays tribute and homage to to the original actor who portrayed the xenomorph in Alien. I think it's it was this like 6 or 7 foot tall Nigerian guy who was just like they stuck him in that costume, and man, it worked. But oh man, I mean, just shout out to the design, shout out to the idea. Like, obviously, again, this is definitely not the first time that they've tried to do a human alien hybrid, because Kevin, I'm guessing that's something that they tried to originally do in Resurrection, obviously, with the Ripley clone.
So much worse in Resurrection. that is just one of the absolute fucking stupidest endings to a movie I've ever seen. You really should do yourself a favor and watch it, just so you can say you have. I like how they took the concept that movie tried to accomplish and did it. I knowing the terrible person that he is now, I will take any opportunity I can to shit on Joss Whedon. In a severely overrated career, in my opinion, that was probably his stupidest thing ever.
Oh, really? Not the you know what a toad does? What happens to the toad when it's struck by lightning for the first X-Men? Not worse than that.
That was Joss Whedon.
That was Joss Whedon who came up with that line. He's uncredited on the script for that first X-Men movie, but yeah, that's him who came up with that line.
Not the butchering of Justice League.
Yeah, well, yeah, that too, but.
Yeah, still Alien Resurrection, definitely.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. I see the stills of the cake batter looking alien, and I'm just like, what was the thought process here? Like, I need to know who specifically came up with the idea for that design. You know,
I'm pretty sure it was Joss Whedon.
Oh man. But needless to say, I think that's another reason why this movie like got the extra half a star, because like I said, this movie was already a 4.5 before we got that last act. And then we got to that last act, and I'm like, oh shit! This is the not the easiest 5, but this is the most well-earned 5 that I've given so far this year. I've only given a 5 to 2 other movies this year, which in 2024 is already impressive to begin with, because I think it's safe to say this has been arguably the worst year of the 2020s so far, which I don't even know how that's possible, given that followed up 2020, the year of no movies, but somehow this year has been worse for movies. And
I don't know if I agree with that, Dom.
Well, I mean,
Dune makes up for a lot.
Yeah, but it's one movie. It's one movie. I had more movies that I enjoyed in 2020.
I like Furiosa.
Furiosa was fantastic. It's a damn shame that movie bombed.
Yeah, it just sucks because that movie's the first 2/3 of Fury Road. So that's the problem with that movie. And Yeah, it's nice that we can still get a movie like this that's cool, but not even just that. It's the fact that obviously Force Awakens and Jurassic World, when those movies came out almost 10 years ago, those set a terrible trend, which the Scream movies have also talked about, which is this idea of the requel, which is a movie that's not quite a sequel, not quite a prequel. It's essentially a reboot, but they still continue it with new characters that tie into the old franchise. And we have seen this done pretty well. We've seen this done mostly awfully well. But it's nice to see that there are still guys that can still make movies like that can like respect the good stuff and respect the legacy of the franchise while also pulling bits and pieces that maybe didn't work in some other lesser known franchises and make them work for this one. So that's kind of why I give this credit and why it sends it a little bit over the edge for me. Because as far as this, again, understanding the promise and the richness of the Alien franchise while also, again, taking elements that didn't necessarily work about certain other movies and making them work in a new, fresh, and fascinating way, while also still managing to incorporate new elements. Again, like I've never seen facehuggers treated the way that they are in this one. You know, even the way that the xenomorphs, you think that there's going to be one, but it turns out that there were multiple. And again, the inclusion of the xeno engineer hybrid. That I'm still going to be workshopping some names for it, but I'm sorry, the Offspring, that's the worst name that I could possibly think of. There's got to be a better name for that. And again, and also it does what every Alien movie does. It ends on an open note where it's like, yep, we're going off into space. You may see us again. You probably won't, but it leaves the door open for future installments. So as far as nailing all of those and also just being a damn good, entertaining movie. This is a damn good, entertaining movie. I really will find it difficult to believe people who watch this movie and say that they won't have a good time because I think that it's one of the few movies that came out this year. And I haven't said this about a lot, but like I said, Dune 2, Deadpool and Wolverine, like those like movies like that where it's like, if you like don't like this movie, you just don't like having a good time. That's kind of the argument that I make.
It was a thrill ride. It was thrilling from start to finish.
Exactly. And so for all those reasons, that's why the Keggy responded to that comment that I saw there. Yeah, I'm giving this a 5 out of 5. And again, I do have the caveat of it being released in 2024 and it being above average movie. If this had come out and say maybe like a 2015 or 2016, it would probably be closer to a 4.5. But for me, this is about as good of a movie that I could get because, as I've said many, many times before, context of the year in which a movie comes out matters. And that's something that a lot of people forget, especially as we get further and further out from movies. So, Kevin, since this is your first time on the show, typically how we wrap the show is, again, we give our final thoughts on the movie, and then we rate the movie out of 5 stars. So what are your final thoughts and overall rating for Alien Romulus?
So I was actually telling someone the other day, I rated it on a 1 to 10 scale in my head.
Mm-hmm.
So we could convert that to 5 somehow. It was so close to perfect. It's my favorite movie that I've seen since Oppenheimer. That's how much I loved it. But I had my 2 minor gripes, one of them being the Ian Holm thing. The other one, Isabel, what's her name?
Isabel Merced.
Her character, Kay. She went through the ringer in that movie. Y'all could have let her make it out of that one.
I thought she did. I thought she was alive.
I don't think she did.
I'm pretty sure she was alive. I thought they put her back into stasis.
She might have. I don't remember. To be honest.
They kind of left it open-ended.
I don't think he survived that, to be honest.
True, but I guess the fact that she was still breathing at the end, I saw her breathing. So
you have to go back and check.
Yeah, unless the thing killed her, when it got super close to her.
It did. I googled.
Oh, okay. No, you're right.
Where I was kind of like, they really did have her go through all that. It seemed like they were building up to saving her, and I think that they probably could have let her out of that one alive.
Yeah, I feel like she could have survived, especially because we have a track record of more than 2 characters making it out of this. The 4 characters survived at the end of Alien, so.
But yeah, my second favorite movie in the franchise, my favorite movie I've seen since I saw Oppenheimer, a 9.8 out of 10. Which I don't know how we'd convert that to.
Say about a 4.5 out of 5, just about.
It's more than 4. I'd say because it's so close to perfect, so close.
4.8. We'll say
4.5 in the heart on the box.
I don't know why I didn't think to just -5 to make it easy for myself.
That's all it is. 4.8.
Be sleep deprived right now.
It happens. Like I said, just the fact that you came on is already awesome to begin with.
Yeah,
Luke.
I hope you guys will have me back. This is
100% you will be back on. Luke, your final thoughts and star rating for Alien Romulus.
Like I said before, all I needed was a banger Alien movie that's the best one since the first 2, and it was exactly that. It was a very hot Thursday. I went in on a nice conditioned theater. Had a good time. Solid, very high 4 stars for me. We'll be rewatching it, I'm sure. It's my number 6 for the year so far.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like I said, for me, 5 out of 5. Easiest 5 out of 5 that I've given a movie since Dune. I had such a blast. It was such a ride for me. Also, again, a great birthday movie on my birthday, which I haven't gotten that in probably since Superbad came out on my birthday in 2007. So this is probably the first one since then. So with that being said, people, that is it. That is our review of Alien Romulus. Kevin, before we get out of here, do you have any social media that you want to plug? Anything like that?
Follow me on Instagram at Kevin the Block. I am a stand-up comedian. I'm getting more and more active with that. Going to start posting a lot of clips here soon. Try to get some sketches going, stuff like that. But yeah, that's it for Kevin the Block on everything except TikTok. I'm Kevin the Block 94 because some douchebag took my handle on that.
Gotta love when they do that.
A picture of a block that they call Kevin, and they've done nothing with it, and I hate them, whoever they are. So Kevin the Block on TikTok, I hate you. The rest of them are all me. So Kevin the Block on everything. Kevin the Block 94 on TikTok.
All right, sounds good. Kevin, it was awesome having you here, dude.
Good.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Funny Dom story before we go for all his listeners. We met through my buddy Kyle. They graduated from school together, and Kyle told me Dom is the only person he's ever met who's a bigger movie guy than me. And I was like, there's no way. There's absolutely no way he knows more about movies than me. One conversation about movies, and I immediately go to Kyle, and I'm like, nope, Dom wins.
And the funniest part is you're not the first person to have been through that exact scenario. So that's really funny that you say that. Oh, man. Luke, where can the good people follow you on the interwebs?
If you want, it's not going to be active again for a while, but you can follow me on Luk Reviews on YouTube and Instagram, but mostly on the Talking TV podcast because big project coming very soon.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Be sure to stay tuned. Only 2 more weeks, people, before the debut of Talking Law. So with that being said, from myself, from Luke, from Kevin, be sure to follow me with everything going on at Movie Nerd Reviews, at Official Talking TV Podcast across all platforms. Subscribe to us if you're watching us on YouTube. This episode will be available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts probably some point later today or tomorrow, depending on my editing schedule. And as always, people, 12 seasons in a short film, and watch more fucking movies. We'll see you guys next time.
See you guys.